After catching my wife cheating with my best friend, I came up with the perfect revenge plan. I won, and I'll hold you in contempt of court, Mr. Erickson. The judge's face turned red, and I had to stifle a laugh at her expression. Mr. Young, I suggest you control your client. I've been warned several times, but it's hard not to say what's on your mind when it's part of your vocabulary. Dealing with a judge like this is tough. I once heard a guy say he'd never met anyone who said it more than I do. I might say it a lot, but it just flows out without thought. As I started to speak, I saw the judge tense up. My attorney, Bert Young, warned me not to speak so openly unless I wanted a night in jail. The court recorder stifled a giggle, likely bracing for a torrent of F-bombs across the courtroom. My best friend, his wife, and my soon-to-be ex-wife looked nervous. Robin, my soon-to-be ex, looked ashamed and downtrodden. Bruce sat there with defeat on his face, and Cheryl, his wife, looked angry. She clearly didn't like their dirty laundry being aired in court. You might be wondering how I ended up being scolded by this simpleton in the black robe. It all started one day, let's call it Tuesday, because it was a Tuesday. My name is Jack Erickson. I'm a 32-year-old, I'm an old foreman in the city maintenance department of Stonemore, Colorado. I started with the city 2 days after graduating high school in the winter. In the summer, I do whatever needs to be done. Robin works a few hours a week at the church to break from housework. Our maintenance department is split into 4 quadrants, each with a supervisor and a foreman. I'm not the supervisor because I never went to college. I use common sense, and I avoid office politics. Usually, if a supervisor tells a crew to do something, they'll check with someone like me first. All 4 men were promoted from within. While supervisors were directly hired, Monday evening brought a nasty June thunderstorm with high winds and hail. My quadrant got hit hardest, so we had a lot of debris to clear from the streets. I had 6 crews with dump trucks picking up debris and drove around in a pickup checking storm drain complaints. If there were any blocked drains, I'd call one of the 2 vacuum trucks I had at my disposal. I also had 4 street sweepers running all day. In the afternoon, I checked the problem alleys to see if we'd need gravel soon. None of my 3 parks got mowed, so I'd have to get that done in the morning. Robin and I had a nice 4-bedroom too. We lived in a story home in an older neighborhood that we couldn't afford. It was in a more affluent area, but we didn't live in an area with a bad reputation. We got along well with our neighbors. Tom and Jerry McBain lived next door, Ron and Cindy lived directly behind us, and my childhood friend Bruce Harris lived behind the McBains with his wife Cheryl. All 4 households got along so well that we didn't have any fences. Bruce and I have been friends since middle school. I got him into more trouble than he could handle, and to make matters worse, his parents were very religious, while mine didn't care much about God. My dad often told me, as long as you don't get into trouble or cost me money, I don't care what you do. Bruce's parents were going to be upset with him for something. I'd take the blame. I know they hated me, so their opinion didn't matter. Bruce grew up as religious as his parents. He went to Bible college and became a preacher at a local church. I only go to church on Easter and Christmas. Robin, on the other hand, goes to church religiously. While Bruce was at Bible college, he met Cheryl. She could have been a Playboy playmate. She's 5 feet 7 inches. She weighs 110 pounds with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a 36-24-34 figure. Despite her looks, she's a prayer machine. Bruce is like the Ian to my Yang, but there wasn't anything I wouldn't do for him. That was until Tuesday evening, when I had to heat up leftover meatloaf from Sunday for dinner. I didn't mind, but my wife hadn't cooked a weekday meal in months. I wanted to drink at 12, I could only have 1 beer since I was on emergency standby. I ate while Robin showered, wishing she'd pay as much attention to me as she did to the shower. It was 7:10 till I doubted I'd see her again that night. She gave me a half-hearted, "How was your day?" when I got home. This routine had been going on for months, and I was tired of it. Our bed life was the worst part. We used to have sex 3 or 4 times a week. In the past 3 months, I'd had sex twice, and she barely noticed me anymore. That night was no different, so I watched the Rockies play the Padres on TV and wished for Jay Giermeister around 10. Just as I was about to go to bed, my phone rang. It was City County Dispatch about a water main break near Birchwood Mall. I packed some snacks and headed out to the city yard. I got the keys and waited for my crew, which included guys from every quadrant, a city water department supervisor, and 4 of their guys. I hooked up a trailer to the dump truck, loaded a backhoe, and we headed to the break site. The street was flooded since the Northwest crew hadn't cleared the storm sewers, so I sent for a vacuum truck at 1 a.m. By 1 p.m., we had started breaking pavement with the backhoe, but it was slow going due to the water. By 3 p.m., we had exposed the pipe and started hauling away mud. The water guys had reconnected the pipe and tested it. The building inspector approved the fix around 9:30, and by noon we were ready to repave. I returned the equipment to the yard by 1:45. I pulled into my driveway, knowing I was off work until Friday. Inside, Robin was nowhere to be found. She was off doing whatever she did all day, which didn't seem to include housework. I grabbed a beer and a sandwich as I closed the fridge. I heard the unmistakable sound of a woman having sex coming from upstairs. No wonder you don't. Screw me, I muttered as I grabbed my Kimber 45 from the coat closet and headed upstairs. The noise got louder as I approached the master bedroom, but it was empty. I checked the bathroom, which was also empty. I had two choices left, the guest bedroom or Robin's craft room. The guest bedroom was empty too, so I kicked open the craft room door, weapon ready. But it was empty, as the sound was loudest there. I noticed the window overlooking the backyard was open. I looked out and saw something shocking. Tommy and Brenda, the McBain children, were having sex by their pool. Tommy was a college junior, and Brenda was about to start her freshman year. She'd had a crush on me. I was shocked. I was witnessing inbreeding. I thought this only happened in places like Mississippi. I muttered, I knew I shouldn't watch, but it was like a train wreck. I wondered if Tom or Jerry knew this was happening in their home. I doubted even the wildest people I knew would condone it. They were watching us look at them. Brenda said to Tommy, "Oh hell, that's so hot," said Tommy. She looked to her left, and I saw Bruce's bare back in his house's upstairs window. He was clearly drilling someone. I thought I'd hang around hoping to see Cheryl unclothed. Then Bruce turned around. Holy crap! I yelled so loudly that the lovemaking stopped. Below, Bruce was pounding my Robin. I froze, unsure what to do. I aimed. I was aiming at Bruce, but I was distracted by Tommy and Brenda running unclothed for their house. I looked back up, intending to shoot Bruce, but they were gone. I yelled, "Damn woman," grabbed my Mossberg, and loaded it with buckshot. I was going to shoot Bruce and the promiscuous woman. Cheryl's cat and parakeet are fair game too. I headed out with my pistol tucked in my jeans. Halfway down the driveway, I stopped. I now understood everything. My house wasn't clean. Meals were from the freezer, and my little Johnny was neglected because Bruce was wearing her out. She took so many showers that the reservoir should be named after me. I got into my truck and left tire marks on the street as I headed for Lowe's. On the way I processed everything was like this. Brenda and Tommy were waiting in my driveway when I got home. What are these perverts want? I wondered. They looked like they were going to the gallows. Brenda offered a sheepish smile. "We're sorry to have disturbed you, Mr. Erickson. We didn't mean to offend you. It's just that." I cut her off. "I don't care if you screw each other until your holes turn to tunnels. It's none of my business. You guys aren't even on my." I could tell they were hiding something. They walked away sheepishly. I felt Brenda's eyes on my hips as I went inside. I set the lock sets down and went to find my tools in the kitchen. My blood boiled. Bruce was sitting at my table. "What are you doing in my house?" I demanded. "You're a sucker," I said. "I came to talk to you as a friend." "Friend?" Bruce replied. I laughed bitterly. "With friends like you, who needs enemies?" "Hey Bruce, how were my wife's holes this morning?" "It doesn't have to be this way," he said. "You're right. Hand me that butcher knife." I slid a knife across the table. He looked at it and then at the Kimber in my hand. "You can't seriously expect to pick up a hole you love Jesus so much. I want you to meet him now. Pick up the knife and let me put the make my day law to use you." "Trespassing, piece of crap." Bruce jumped up and ran for the door. He stopped on the porch and turned back. "Jack, we've been friends forever. Are you willing to throw that away? I lost 2 people today. But I think when I get past all of it, I'll realize it's no real loss." "Where's Robin?" I asked. "She's afraid to come over here. It'll only take a few minutes to get over here if she wants. Is there any chance of staying married to me now? Get off my property before I risk prison." I just wanted to feel better, so I warned Bruce. He scurried off, and I wondered how long it would take Robin to drag her cheating bum home. For minutes later, I heard her sniveling and sobbing. People must have wondered what was going on when they saw her walking. She came up the sidewalk crying and tried to hug me. I stepped back and told her, "Keep your hands to yourself." She said, "I love you, baby. I only want to be with you." I said, "Let go." I don't need to hear our business. She followed me into the living room and sat on the love seat. She asked, would you sit next to me? I said, no. I wanted to be near you, but I refused. I hated awkward silences, so I jumped in. How long have you been screwing that idiot? He loves you like a brother. Or HEK, your best friend Jack was my friend. She responded, friends don't screw their friends' wives. I added, it's just love making. I still love you. She insisted, what a load of crap. It's just love making. Whoever thought of that deserves a cinder block to the head, I said, there's no need to be angry. You still have me. I'm not going anywhere. Yes, you are, she replied. You're choosing Bruce over me in our marriage. You can't give me 5 minutes, but you can bend over for him anytime. I said, I'm not ending our marriage. We can stay married. I'll just have love with Bruce. I don't love him, just his meat. He said, I can take care of your needs once or twice a week. You're still married to me, but it won't be for much longer. I'm your ex-wife, and I'm more your type. Bruce Harris said, please don't talk like that. I love you, but I love Bruce's big meat too. You just need to understand Bruce's plan. We can all be happy. She tried to reason with him, saying, I understand perfectly. You want to have your cake and eat it too. Eat it too. I concluded it's not like that at all. She protested, then explained it to me. I challenged, I can't. You'd never. Well, I think Bruce wants me back in 3 minutes. She stammered, what the hell are you babbling about? I asked, seeing the shock on her face. You've never called me names or talked this way to me. What's gotten into you? She inquired. Let's see. I haven't slept since 6 o'clock. It's 12 a.m. yesterday, I worked all night. Or maybe it's because I got home to find my wife was already with someone else. You idiot. I snapped. She started crying and headed for the door. That's it. Go to Bruce. Go get what you crave. I shouted. She turned at the door. I don't see why we can't keep things as they are. You're not home all the time. I can be his while. You're at work. I slammed the door so hard I thought it splintered. Screw you, go eat your cake. I yelled so loud my throat hurt. I sat with my back to the door, feeling unmanly. Dad would have whipped my bum if he'd seen me with tears. So I sucked it up and got on with my tasks. I changed the locks on all the doors and recoded the garage opener at 4. I decided to take a quick break. I was exhausted and needed to sit for a bit. I turned on the TV to Jerry Springer, which seemed fitting given the show's focus on cheating wives and troubled families. I didn't make it far with Jerry before falling asleep. When I woke up, it was past 9, and I heard a knock on my door. I got up and answered it. It was Bruce. What do you want? I said. I ought to strike the crap out of you. She was crying her eyes out. You call her and tell her you're not angry and everything will be okay. Hey, Ken, wait a minute. I think you should know that she wants you two to stay together. I know, but she's not going to be happy about it. She'll find out in the morning when I leave her a note on the porch. Just tell her that I'm not happy about it either. And if she comes by again, I'll be ready for her. I went upstairs and sat in Robin's craft room, watching out the window. It dawned on me I should record evidence for divorce, so I grabbed the camcorder and watched Bruce's house. I noticed movement next door. It was Jerry McBain, at the pool in a robe. I hope she had a one-piece bathing suit underneath. Jerry might be she was the nicest person, but she fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch. Unlike her daughter, her body wasn't a distraction from her face. Tom isn't much better. It baffles me that Tommy and Brenda aren't uglier. Unfortunately, Jerry took off her robe and dove into the pool. I turned back to Bruce's house with the camera. One night, I saw Cheryl and Robin on the porch swing talking quietly. The headlights lit up Bruce's house. Tom must be home from managing his restaurant. He went straight to the pool and started stripping. What did I do to deserve this? I muttered to myself. I watched Bruce's house until I heard Tom enter the pool. They cozied up. I could hear their conversation as we embraced in the water. How's work, babe? I'm busy, Jerry replied. I had to fire one for smoking dope on his break. Did you warn him? She asked. I heard something interesting today, he said. Don't tell. Yeah, she replied. He actually kicked her out. Tom confirmed that the two of them would die without each other. I always thought she'd throw him out for his foul mouth. She said, "You have to be wrong." Tom doubted, according to Tommy and Brenda. When they were cleaning the pool, they saw Bruce and Robin having sex in Bruce's. Jack must have been home for some reason. They heard him yell profanity and saw Bruce and Robin quickly stop. Jack left and came back with a Lowe's back, changed the locks, and later called Robin a promiscuous Jerry. Tom relayed, "I can't believe it. He said he'd check on Jack tomorrow and that they should stay away from each other. Bruce, I always thought he looked at you and Robin too closely." The thought of Bruce undressing Jerry made me shudder. Brenda said she'd take Jack a cake tomorrow to cheer him up. She thinks highly of him. Crude, but I can't think of anyone else I'd want on my side. I saw him working by the mall this morning. Morning, Jerry said. Was he wearing a hard hat? Yes, she confirmed. You and your construction worker predilection. Maybe I can get Jack to model it for you. Tom teased, and I shuddered again. Normally, a guy loves to hear a woman finds him attractive. But for the first few weeks, I thought Tom and Jerry were a gay couple. Jerry can look quite manly. You're so bad, she told him. I can't understand why Robin would rather screw Bruce when she has Jack. She wondered aloud, you're starting to give me a complex. The only hunk for me is my hot man, Jerry, he assured her. I'm going to go to bed now. I wasn't sure I'd be able to sleep, but I didn't want to have nightmares about Tom and Jerry. I turned on the radio for noise and heard the heavy metal grindcore show on the college station. I listened to tracks by Carcass, Deicide, and Obituary before the show ended. They played Cannibal Corpses Make Them Suffer as I listened. I decided. I wanted to make Bruce and Robin suffer. Core Grinder Fisher's lyrics echoed in my mind. Make them suffer, make them suffer. And I vowed I would core grinder. I will be the next morning. Someone was pounding on my door. I shook off sleep and went to see who had an early morning death wish. I opened the door. I was ready to yell at Robin, but it was Cheryl Harris. Oh, it's you. What do you want? Robin's stuff isn't packed yet. I don't want you to pack her stuff. Jack, I want you to let her come back home. Cheryl responded, I thought you were going to ask for something unreasonable. I'm going back to bed. I was about to close the door, but she blocked it. Wait, Jack. Why are you doing this? Robin is hurting, and you won't consider her feelings. We have an image to protect, she pleaded. You should have thought of that before dragging my wife into your sick game. Why can't she live with you? You don't see a problem here. I gave her a chance to stay, but she chose your husband over me. The worst part is you don't seem to care, but I do now. Leave me alone, I demanded. I still love you, Jack. We didn't want to take her away from you. We love her and you too. I hate to see you throw away your friendship with Bruce and Cheryl. She insisted, dead to me. So is she. I stated coldly, you can't mean that, Jack. She can still take care of your needs. She tried to persuade. Oh, why didn't you say so sooner? I retorted sarcastically, I feed and house her, buy her clothes, a car, and everything she needs. She screws you too, and I get a weekly romantic handshake. Bruce gets his without any cost. Screw that. Do I get love-making time with you? I asked pointedly. Sorry, Jack. I'm a one-man woman. She replied, man, woman, I said, bemused. I'd sure like one of those. Well, then, that's what I have to find. Tell the promiscuous her stuff will be out here in an hour. My port Cheryl, I said, closing the door firmly behind me. Sounds like your problem. Sucks to be you. I slammed the door and went to make some bacon. I thought, I can't believe anyone thought I'd agree to this stupid idea. They want to look squeaky clean while having wild love. Making with my wife. Core grinder words. I called an EXO worker who handled his divorce when he caught his wife with her brother. He gave me the name of a law firm, Crosby, Stills and Nash, that specializes in men not wanting to get screwed in their divorces. I got an appointment for that afternoon. I packed all of Robin's clothes and toiletries into I put the bags on the front porch and added a few things I thought she'd want, like her car keys under the floor mat. Then I went to the bank. I canceled all the credit cards, closed our joint account, and opened a new one in my name. She had a card I didn't know about, so I gave the bank Bruce's address to send him the bill at 1 in the afternoon. I went to the law office. I was hoping for David Crosby, who is known for getting things done quickly with divorce attorneys. Instead, I got Burt Young. He was a bit scruffy, but his record spoke for itself. He looked over my files without saying anything and then called in his paralegal to take my paperwork. Mr. Erickson, I think we can get you everything you want and tone down the preacher a notch. Do you think that's a good plan? I don't have photo or video proof, but the neighbor kids saw them too. I just want her out of my life. The paralegal brought in papers for me to sign. Bert explained each one and why it was necessary. He gave me a list of things to do, most of which I had already done. I paid his retainer and went home to nap. Robin's stuff was gone when I got home. There was a note taped to my door. I took it. Inside, on the couch, Springer. The note was from Robin, begging to come home. There was no mention of giving up Bruce or Bert. I started with Bruce's wagon. I called the city accounting department. I'd let my crews haul gravel to Bruce's church for free. I kept the tier sheets. Janice had said the bill would be entered as unpaid, so Bruce would get a call from collections at $45 a ton plus $30 per load for transportation. Bruce now owed the city $7. I also told the water company supervisor about their non-compliant water meter, which they'd have to replace for $11. 200. Bruce knew I had kept him from paying for many things and made him suffer. I was going to bankrupt the guy. I knew of several home projects Bruce hadn't done properly. Building inspectors were now informed. Bruce would pay dearly to fix it all. I knew he'd call soon, and he did at noon. "What are you trying to pull, Jack?" Bruce demanded. "What do you mean?" I asked innocently. "The building inspectors are saying I have to redo the whole parking lot. You said everything would be fine." Bruce said, "It seems I forgot to turn in some paperwork." I replied, "Don't worry, I'll be reprimanded." He retorted angrily, "I hope they fire you." My supervisor walked in and saw who was on the phone. "Jack, about that late paperwork. Remind me to put a scathing post, it's in your file," he said, with a smirk. "I'll need a post-it to remind you." "Okay, Jack, try not to do it again," my supervisor quipped, as he left the room. That was some repercussion. "Jack, I'm surprised he didn't find you a nickel." "He did file all my timesheets, except for a bill," Bruce said, sarcastically. I went to M's bar for a beer or three that evening. Many city workers and cops were there. By 11 o'clock. Most of them had heard my story, and it seemed like a full-out maltreatment campaign was underway. A cop buddy mentioned that Bruce might get pulled over more often. A fire department friend suggested that the church might make the inspection list on Monday, and the fire marshal would give it full attention. "These churches are always out of date on something," he said. "We don't enforce the code too harshly, but Tony might want to think about the safety of the congregation." Sheila Torres from the county clerk's office mentioned that the assessor might find an error in Bruce's property tax assessment, which would lead to a past due amount. She added that on Saturday morning, she worked in her garage, and the backyard was I was in my garage, fixing a cabinet, when I heard a noise behind me. I turned, expecting Robin, but saw Brenda. "Hi, Jack, Mr. Erickson." Brenda greeted him, and I noticed her attractive figure. But I quickly reminded myself of her questionable activities. With her brother, "I have a video you might find useful. It was taken a week ago." She handed me a USB stick, her hand lingering in mine. My eyes locked onto her chest before I looked at her face again. She had a look of lust, then blinked it away. "I have chores to do, but the video might help your case, Mr. Erickson." "I'll check it out, Brenda." "Thanks for bringing it," I replied. She turned and left, looking back over her shoulder. "My pleasure to help." "Have a good one," she said. She'd never called me anything but Mr. Erickson. I pocketed the stick and continued with my tasks. I finally mowed the lawn, enduring Robin screaming from Bruce's balcony. I added buying a loud MP3 player to Tom. "Just wanted to give you a heads up. 1. Jerry didn't call the cops, and the family opted for the AC inside at 5. 2. I'm heading to Joe's Pit Barbecue for their rib platter while eating. John Brandon Cheryl's brother spotted me. He's an engineer for the city-county road department, and I had a good rapport with him. I'm unsure of his stance, so I pretended not to notice him." He told Ramona. Joe's wife had a to-go order and paid. The next thing I knew, John was at my table. "Hi, Jack," he said. "It's been a while." "I've been busy," I replied. "Every time we clean up one storm, another rolls through." "Yeah, I hear that," he said. "We're opening bids next week for replacing the Johnson Street Bridge. You guys will get some tasks. But the commissioners want contractors to handle most of it." I told him that would be great. "We'd like to fill 100 potholes and repair 3 park irrigation systems. How's life treating you?" I couldn't tell if he was fishing for info or unaware of my situation. We made small talk for a few minutes, then he got to the point. I understand my brother, in the law firm, is under scrutiny and he'll be paying the city a lot for upgrades. It's good to see someone standing up to that guy. Jack, he clapped my shoulder. See you around, Jack. He got his food and left. I finished my meal and stopped at Chang's. I went to the store and got a bottle of vodka. I was about to watch TV when I remembered the USB stick Brenda had given me. I popped it into my laptop and saw only one file. When I opened it, I saw Brenda leaning out her bedroom window wearing nothing below the waist and pleasuring herself. I'd love to jump on your meat, she said, with my lawn mower. There was a sound in the background, and I remembered her watching me mow several times on screen. She climaxed and shook with ecstasy. I was about to fast forward when Tommy entered the room. Hold it, young lady, he said. Are you giving pleasure to? I cringed, knowing I was a fixture in the McBail household. I am Tommy, but for now, pretend you're him. Screw me and make me believe it's him. I skipped ahead, and soon the screen showed Robin, Bruce and Cheryl on their terrace. I felt stupid for not noticing them just 50 yards away. I had evidence for my divorce, so I called in a favor from a friend. The video would serve another purpose before court for the first time in ages. I was up early on Sunday, ready for church after coffee and a bagel. I drove to Vinewood Presbyterian Church in the parking lot and saw others who likely didn't frequent Bruce's services. I followed them in and took a seat. Robert Donovan, who managed the audio-video system, caught my eye. Robert owed me a few favors. I checked the bulletin. My moment would come after the offering. The choir entered with Cheryl and Robin. Bruce was talking about forgiveness without mentioning the seventh commandment. We sang a few hymns, and then the offering plates were passed. Once we'd gathered, we went to Robert at the console, who counted the money during the sermon. 10 minutes later, Bruce prayed to welcome newcomers and asked guests to introduce themselves. My 3 guests stood and went to the pole. Bruce shook hands with each and handed them the mic. A young brunette spoke first. I'm here to see Cheryl Harris. Cheryl came forward looking puzzled. The brunette handed the mic to a pimply, he was facing red. The kid with the hair said he was there to see Robin Erickson. Robin joined Cheryl. Neil Young, Bruce Harris, Cheryl Harris, and Robin Erickson were served. They handed documents to the trio, who were shocked. Bruce grabbed his mic and asked why they had defiled his sanctuary. Robert then showed a video clip on the big screen behind the pulpit. It showed Bruce and Cheryl. Robin was also there, unclothed on the patio. 4 or 5 old ladies reached for their phones, likely to call the cops. One elderly lady punched Bruce in the nuts with her cane. Robin read her paper and screamed, I'm leaving, but then turned to see me. She ran toward me while Bruce stayed put. I spun around. I was only met by a cop days later, after the dust settled and the DA refused to file charges against me. Bruce installed a privacy fence as required by his restraining order. I wasn't allowed near his church except for city business, and he couldn't maltreat me. Robin could only contact me through Bert, young Sonny Bono, and our assistant DA. I had to explain to him that I'd put the USB stick in the collection plate for Robert. Bruce wanted to charge me with trespassing, but it was a public service, so he couldn't. Robert lost his job, but he got another position at another church. Bert told me we'd go before Judge Sonia Kagan in 2 weeks to begin proceedings. It can be tough, Bert warned. She usually favors the wife over the husband. Since you own the house, she can't do much to you, but she always gives alimony to cheaters, which worries me. My immediate supervisor was a fresh college grad. I ran my quad because he never overrode me, knowing I handled everything well. Other supervisors were more hands-on. But still involved Marvin. Taylor, however, ran the worst quad in town. He didn't trust his leads and never helped his crew. Most guys would rather pull their hair out with pliers than spend 5 minutes with them. Rumor had it he had dirt on someone in city council or was the mayor's lover, which explained his job security today. Marvin showed up in my office if he managed a 5-minute conversation without being a xenophobe. Or an offender. It did snow 5T tomorrow. Despite it being almost the 4th of July. So Jackie boy, I hear you're getting a divorce. Did she catch you with your schlong and the cat's poop shoot? He said. I wasn't about to tell him the truth. No. I just got tired of her crap. Do you have a judge yet? Yeah, Judge Kagan, that witch. I'm sorry to say that I was involved in a situation where I was complicit in enabling my son's ex to take the house and kids. Jeff has to pay for both. I hope you have a good attorney. Jeff had some cheap lawyer he found in the classifieds. I wonder if Marvin ever thought about the impact of the things he said. He managed to offend 2 races in one go. I also wonder if he ever talked like this in front of Jimmy Raines, who is 6 feet 5 inches and African-American. Foreman Jimmy, who played linebacker for the New York Giants, seemed intimidating but was a riot after a few beers. Once at MB, he scared off some frat boys from the bathroom just by looking at them. Zeke, the bartender, had to ask him to stop messing with the college kids. Jimmy was great, but he wouldn't find Marvin's slurs funny. Jimmy saved me. I thanked Jimmy for showing up and told him I'd face Judge Kagan in 2 weeks. I doubted Jimmy could save me from that, but maybe it wouldn't be Southwest bad in court. Judge Kagan sat unflinching as I erupted, this which ordered couples counseling when I refused. She threatened to put me in jail. I turned to Bert and said, "Come on, tell her this therapy isn't happening." I looked at the judge and said, "I just want to be rid of this woman and her preacher pals." Bruce hung his head, and Cheryl looked furious. Bert had subpoenaed the Harisas as witnesses. Their congregation had dwindled, and Bruce's 2 services for $150 had become 1 for $10 plus. Plus, 3 representatives from the main church are planning to replace Bruce. The choir of 20 was now Cheryl, Robin, and Charles Brown. First, it's only love-making. I wondered if she'd buy that excuse if I'd been caught with Rebecca Sanders. Becky was known as the most promiscuous of all. Jack works a lot, and I feel neglected. Robin said I worked 7. I'm going to have to get up at midnight. Morning to 4 p.m. Monday to Friday, and I'd only been called away at night 4 times in the past year and a half. My first time with Bruce was out of curiosity. I'd heard he had a larger-than-normal penis. I wondered how many people had used the excuse of wanting to know what a bigger penis felt like. As she went on, I recalled I'd first hooked up with her at homecoming, which was a big deal at Summit, Southern Colorado State, mostly for the parties. Willie Barnes's bonfire on the Eastern Prairie was a staple event, despite Willie being a 45-year-old old pervert who hosted it at Ogallala College and High School. He was arrested 5 years later for assaulting 6 girls, with charges sticking for 3. Robin's junior year homecoming was special because the Fighting Farmers actually won, even though half the opposing team had stomach flu. I wasn't a student, I worked part-time for the city and campus maintenance, hoping to afford classes. One day we were told not to clean up until Sunday morning so we could party and clean up once instead of twice. My friend Jerry Barnes invited me to the bash at his cousin Wiley's ranch by 11. I was a little drunk, and I noticed that about half the crowd had disappeared. The parking lot was still full, so I figured it was safe to take a piss in the parking lot. I walked out, stopped in front of a seemingly unoccupied car, and proceeded to relieve myself on the grill. As I finished, I stumbled and braced myself on the hood. The guy inside was a blur, but the brunette giving him headlocked eyes with me. I quickly apologized and headed back to the bonfire. I saw the same brunette by the fire and moved to avoid her passing a group of frat boys who knew me. They all had to shake my hand and express their love, though only one really knew me from giving him a jump start last winter. While talking to the frat boys, I felt a hand brush my hips. I turned to see the brunette walking away. The next morning, I found a note in my jeans pocket. It said, "If you like what you saw as much as I liked what I saw, call me Robin." A phone number was written at the bottom. I spent the day cleaning up debris and wondering if the note was genuine. During my final break, I decided to call. "Hello," answered a voice. "May I speak to Robin?" I asked. "She's not here." "Can I take a message?" The voice replied, "Tell her the guy from the party called and he liked what he saw." I said, leaving my number. I was wondering if I'd given it to someone else that evening as I settled in to watch a taped Broncos game. My phone rang. "Yeah, I don't know your name, but I've seen your package," said a gruff but feminine voice. I thought it might be a prank. "Should I just call you Moby Dick?" "Nope, Jack will work just fine." "Is Robin it?" "Yes, it's Robin." "Sorry, my voice is hoarse from yelling at the game yesterday." "Yelling at the game? Or would you like to meet at Frank's?" "Frank's? I'll be there in an hour." She agreed to meet me in an hour wearing a Shannon Sharp jersey and jeans. I teased that I'd be wearing number 84 for the Broncos. She described her outfit in detail. 45 minutes later, I was at Frankie's Cafe, watching the door. I wasn't wearing my jersey in case I needed to slip out. 20 minutes later, she walked in, looking exactly as described. I felt like a schmuck for not wearing my jersey. I stood and waved, and she headed. I was in the way, dismissing a few guys who stopped her. She was wearing a funny-looking Bronco jersey. Jack was afraid of getting tricked. I was teasing her, but I wanted to escape. "If you weren't as advertised," I admitted I could have been more honest. "I can't blame you," she said. We drank coffee and ate pie until closing time, then said goodnight. We dated for a month before getting physically engaged. The night I planned to make my move, I called Bruce to tell him I was getting serious with a girl. He advised making sure our feelings were true. To avoid heartache, ironically, 10 years later she broke my heart because of him. I realized I had laughed out loud when Robin and Dr. Landers looked at me like I just ruined their fruit salad. Do you find amusement in Robin's pain, Mr. Erickson? Dr. Landers asked. I believe I owe Gary Wayne an apology, I replied. Robin looked puzzled. She had dated Gary once but quickly moved on to Justin, the guy she was with at the party 2 days later. Rumor had it Gary wasn't well endowed enough for her. Why would you owe him an apology? Robin asked. I might have punched him for telling the truth. I admitted what truth she inquired. She said Robin should be nicknamed Big Bird because she was always seeking a bigger branch to sit on. I explained, I don't understand. She said, still puzzled. Check a size queen, I clarified. Robin blushed angrily. She dumped Gary because he had a small wiener. Then she dumped Justin for me. Now she found out my ex, my best friend, has a larger one and jumped to him. It's just filthy. If you say it's just lovemaking, I'll leave and do my time in jail for contempt. I threatened Robin and Dr. Landers were shocked. Dr. Landers collected herself. Robin, who is a bit of a Neanderthal, doesn't comprehend multiple lovemaking partners in a happy marriage. Marriage? Dr. Landers began, what are you talking about? I asked, incredulous. Many happily married couples enjoy multiple partners. Some husbands even derive pleasure from watching their wife with a better endowed man. She explained. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. There aren't enough narcotics to make me enjoy this. I disagree. I don't care what others enjoy. I'll never watch my spouse with someone else. I'd rather put a bullet in her head before cleaning up after her. Jack, you owe it to yourself and your marriage to have a more open mind. No one said you have to watch or clean up. Dr. Landers suggested, yeah, Jack, it would be so hot. Robin added, you could even service me. Screw you. You think I want Bruce's leftovers next? You want me in pink lingerie while you and Bruce screw and I sleep in a cage at the foot of the bed? I spat out angrily, oh no, Jack. We'd let you sleep in your own bed. I'm out of here, I yelled. The receptionist was probably ready to call emergency services. Mr. Erickson, you were ordered to attend these sessions. Failure to do so. That means jail time for contempt. Dr. Landers reminded me, you've been here for an hour. You don't need to stay any longer. I looked Dr. Landers in the eye and said, tell the judge everything I said. I don't care what she does. It'll be a cold day in hell before I get near that skank again. I added, pointing at Robin, I'll also talk to my lawyers about getting your license pulled and leaving this building. I felt better than I had in years. I drove straight to Bert's office. He looked pretty alarmed when he saw me. Please tell me you didn't eliminate anyone, he said nervously. I wanted to, but I didn't, I replied. I probably said some things they didn't like, I told him. I told you about the session and the rehearsed feeling I got from it. I also told you about the counselor's attitude toward me. Jack, you're not the first to complain about this. Complaints just get swept under the rug. I would have warned you, but I'm likely to get hit with tampering charges. I'm not going back, Bert. If Jabba the Hutt wants to jail me, she can, but I'm not sitting through 3 more hours of this crap. Bert said he'd have David Crosby make some calls and stay out of trouble. We'll get this over soon. I went home wanting a few stiff drinks, but there was a red mark on the calendar. I had 3 beers since it was early afternoon, and I wouldn't be back on duty until after 7. I had dinner, watched TV, and drank beer by the 6th inning of the ball game. A thunderstorm rolled in, so I went to the porch and saw heavy black clouds moving over downtown, signaling a summer hailstorm that could keep roofing crews busy until Thanksgiving. Earlier summer storms had hit the north side hard, promising work for roofing contractors until October. As the storm raged and power outage reports came in, I prepared for a long night. My neighborhood got we got hail, but the calls said it was golf ball and baseball-sized hail in Midtown. Instead of cleaning up hail, half the crew and I hauled sand and road base to the river dike, which was threatened by heavy rain. 0 a.m. The Army Corps of Engineers said the dike was safe, and the county had the bridge under control. We spent another 3 hours hauling away sand and dirt from the storm at 9 a.m. On Friday, I pulled into my driveway, knowing I wouldn't catch my wife with Bruce because I no longer had a wife. I was energized from coffee and energy drinks, but I figured a shot of Jägermeister would help me sleep after finishing the bottle. I laid down on the couch to watch TV and fell asleep. I was awakened by knocking at the door. It was almost 11. Brenda McBain was on my porch. What does she want? I wondered aloud. I turned on the porch light and opened the door. Sorry to bother you, Jack, she said. But there's something you need to see. It might help with your divorce. I stood there trying to understand what she could show me. She looked hot in tight shorts and a yellow halter. I'll show you, she said. She turned and headed to her driveway. I followed her to her car and got in. As she drove, we remained silent. I kept staring at her legs, which were much better than Robin's or Cheryl's. She caught me staring a few times and smiled. Brenda drove to a group of abandoned buildings downtown. The city had bought the buildings years ago, hoping developers would buy them, but sales were always nixed by a secret ballot from the Board of Trustees. It cost the city a lot to maintain and secure the properties. 2 years ago, a chain-link fence was installed to keep people out. We parked at the old power plant, which had more cars than expected. Brenda, what are we doing here? We could get in a lot of trouble if we're caught. Come on, Jack. You'll see this will help you in a big way. I saw why Brenda had brought me as I gasped. She handed me her camcorder on the way home. Brenda explained how she discovered what was happening at the hotel. Tommy and I were spying on Bruce and Robin when he mentioned this place. So the next Friday night, we followed them here. I was surprised Cheryl didn't come. She explained that was Friday night choir practice. I asked incredulously, Brenda, you look embarrassed that I found out another of your wife's secrets. Don't worry, Brenda. I'll keep you and Tommy out of this. My issue is with the others. I reassured her, you know Tommy and I have a thing because we're not the most attractive. Brenda said, where did that come from? I wondered, I never questioned their activities. That can't be true. I bet many guys would love to be with you. I said, trying to comfort her, maybe some guy would use me, but none want to be seen in public with me. I've had 3 boyfriends who dated prudes and met me in secret. They call me bummer face and a 3 bag, one on my head, one on his in case mine falls off, and one by the door. I'm good enough for secret lovemaking, but not to date or show off. Come on, Brenda. It can't be that bad. If I were your age, I'd be all over you. I was a bit mad at her for lying, but she was on the verge of tears and I felt like I could help her out a lot. You've helped me a lot, actually. I'd like to take you to dinner tomorrow. I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock. Okay, you don't have to pity me, Jack. Besides, I'm going. I'm heading to Denver tomorrow, and we'll be gone until Sunday evening. It's not pity. How about a rain check on the dinner I offered? She agreed, and I went inside. I had the leverage I needed in the morning. I'd make some calls by Thursday. Everything was in place. I called Bert first. Well, I have to warn you that what you're doing is considered extortion, but I think it will work. As an investigative reporter, I gave him the video in great detail. He'd heard rumors and planned to stake out the hotel with the intention of busting them live on TV. On Monday morning, I proposed a plan to the head of the city maintenance department. It would solve a storage problem and restrict hotel access, and he liked it. After all, the city owned the property, so we just needed to request it with the zoning office. There was no need for board involvement because we were reappropriating the land and not selling it. The fences wouldn't cost more than $150. There was no budget request needed since the cost was only $000. As I left his office, he told me he was recommending me for a promotion. You saved us at least $500,000. If this gets done, great thinking, Jack. I need more thinkers on my staff, he said. By Wednesday, we had all the approvals and permits. I was put in charge of overseeing the move and upgrades. The men crew was assigned, and the project would be done in 3 weeks. On Thursday morning, we started moving fencing material to the old power plant parking lot. We'd use the land behind the hotel for snowplow storage and a new sand depot. I left work at noon for counseling with Dr. L.E.R.S. At 12:30 I walked into the reception room. The receptionist gave me a dirty look and called into her boss's office. 5 minutes later, I was buzzed in. Dr. Landers looked pretty smug, which made it all the more enjoyable for me, Mr. Erickson. I'm surprised to see you early. I'm glad we can have a few minutes for one-on-one before the session. Dr. Landers said, let's have a quick one-on-one. One is a new concept, huh? I remarked, excuse me, Mr. Erickson, she asked. I just came to tell you I won't attend this charade anymore or pay for it, I declared. She looked annoyed, then smug. When I came back, I interrupted Mr. Erickson. Watch your mouth, she warned. Tell her the gig is up. I know about your Casanova Club at the King James, and my buddy Mike will soon too. Legal and ethical agencies will be curious why a family court judge and counselor run a love club. I told her that I knew about the club and that it was giving people favorable rulings in Kagan's court. I said that I would expose it. She tried to deny it, but I cut her off and said that I had seen the elk head with contraceptives on its antlers. She looked shocked as I started ranting. I hadn't told anyone about it. Mike Starr already knew and had video proof that Judge Kagan and her husband stood to lose the most. He worked in the DA's office, and Stoneware DA Jim Morrison wouldn't tolerate embarrassment. I looked back at the dejected Dr. Landers and said, "Screw you." Robin was with Dr. Landers when I left 20 minutes later. My session with Jack was supposed to start 10 minutes after that, but the door buzzed. Bruce and my attorney, Justin Bieber, told me that Dr. Landers and Judge Kagan would either convince Jack to accept my situation or make the process so drawn out that he'd give up. I wore a shorter skirt, no hose, styled my hair the way he liked, and wore the perfume he bought me. Dr. Landers looked upset when I walked in. Jack wasn't there, so I assumed he had been dismissed. I was upset that I had to see him, even though I hated him. I couldn't walk down our street or be on the balcony while he was home. Jack was risking jail to avoid the session, so I asked. I knew she didn't like macho men like Jack, especially with his attitude and foul mouth. "There's no session today. Robin, I'll call you when I know more," she said as she buzzed the door open. I wondered what had shaken her. I drove to the church to see Bruce with extra time. I looked forward to the Casanovas Club the next night. Bruce would be in my bum while Terry Kagan screwed me. Just the thought made me hot. If I found Bruce alone at the church, he'd get jumped. I wish Jack would join in. The thought of Jack and Bruce doing me at the same time almost made me climax. I could even smell my own arousal at the church. Bruce was on the phone and looked in a foul mood. The look he gave me said I'd have to wait. That was Terry. There will be no club meeting tonight. Jack found out and threatened to call Mike Starr. "I'm regretting hooking up with you, Robin. Your holes aren't worth it." Bruce said I was stunned. A few months ago, he wanted me every day, saying I was better than Cheryl. Now, with a little pushback from Jack, I was suddenly out of the loop. After dinner, my attorney called. He said we had a hearing in the morning, and he thought it could be a good sign, possibly indicating that Jack had dropped the divorce petition. I asked if it could be a contempt hearing. Justin thought it was unlikely that Jack would be called as a witness. He said that if he were, we wouldn't have been ordered to appear. He advised me to get some rest. I'm feeling optimistic about tomorrow. Bruce seems to have recovered his spirits. Perhaps someone pressured him to remain silent. There are powerful people in that club. Jack has courage, but lacks influence. The lovemaking that night was incredible. I climaxed a dozen times. Bruce, Cheryl, and I had a great time at 10:12 a.m. I was in Judge Kagan's courtroom with Jack's attorney and another man, but Jack wasn't there. I asked Justin if Jack would be in trouble for not showing up. He said it wasn't likely, he might just be taking a break. I don't understand why Graham Nash is here. He hasn't been in a courtroom in 6 years. Something's definitely up. Justin replied, Judge Kagan called the court to order. Jack's attorney and Nash asked to approach. Justin joined them and they talked at the bench for 20 minutes. Minutes later, Justin looked troubled when he returned. Before I could ask, the judge banged her gavel and announced that my marriage to Jack would be dissolved in 90 days. I would receive no alimony or support, only 25% of Jack's retirement and 40% of our liquid assets. Justin explained that Judge Kagan granted Jack's petition for divorce. The next thing I knew, an EMT was helping me to a seat. "Ma'am, how many fingers am I holding up?" Everything had fallen apart from the news. The Casanova Club was exposed, which led to Judge Kagan's removal and potential charges. Her husband was fired and charged in a pill-running scheme. Justin Bieber was disbarred for having relationships with male clients and throwing cases for Judge Kagan. He was also involved in the pill ring. Dr. Landers was ordered to repay 30 clients and was later found dead with her husband in a homicide-suicide. Bruce was asked to resign from his ministry with his severance. Cheryl filed for divorce after catching him pleasuring himself while watching the McBain sisters swim. Bruce blamed me for everything and decided not to take me with him. I moved into a small apartment with Cheryl until we got back on our feet. I used most of the money from Jack to set up our utilities and help Cheryl hire an attorney. Bruce tried to hire Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, but they refused. He ended up with a no-name lawyer. Got cleaned out by Cheryl. Last I heard he was preaching in Iowa. Got a job with an accounting agency. After my divorce, Cheryl worked for a contractor and started dating one of his workers. I didn't want to date anyone I wanted. Jack. Occasionally I walked past our old street and saw the first sale sign in the yard. 2 weeks ago I saw it had sold. I went to buy comfort food. Mainly hot dogs and chips. I also passed the frozen dinner section. I saw Jack buying a frozen pizza. Before I knew it, I was grilling in the store. I don't remember exactly what I said, but when I stopped to breathe and wipe my eyes, Jack looked in, embarrassed. A small crowd had gathered. He smiled, pointed to his bum, and said, "Eat my crap and die." Then he walked away. I was in Las Vegas. I pulled my truck into the driveway and saw my lawn needed mowing. I'd wait until Saturday morning to beat the heat inside. My wife greeted me with a passionate kiss. "Hi, baby. Did you make sure the tourists and pensioners didn't cheat the big corporations?" She teased my job as a slot machine technician. I always brought out her sarcasm. "When you graduate next month, you'll be working for the men, just like me. At least until you knock me up," I replied, adding to the banter. She kissed me again. "I'm glad you're home studying with the girls tonight." I asked. "Yes, but I'll have to watch Samantha around you. She can't keep her eyes off you." She joked, "I used to have a neighbor girl like that who always stared at my bum when I mowed the lawn. I still can't believe Robin screwed Mr. Harris." I thought, oh well, her loss, my gain. I was bummed about leaving Robin the way I did, but I just couldn't trust her again. I slipped out after she fell asleep, paid for the room, and left her 3 days later. Thanks to Noah, I made it to Utah before sunrise and arrived in Vegas 2 days later. Within a week, I had a job and a place. I used the money from selling my house and my retirement fund to buy a new house 2 weeks later. Brenda showed up as planned. She had enrolled at UNLV during the weeks waiting for my house to sell and my divorce to finalize. Brenda and I spent a lot of time together. We'd bring food, watch movies, and go out on weekends. The more I knew her, the more I liked her. I wasn't ashamed to be seen in public with her when I told her about Robin, begging me to take her back. She teared up. "Hey, I have no plans of going back to her," I said. "Brenda, I'm falling for you. I have a plan. If you can stand being with an old man like me," I said gently. She was on me before I could finish. That night, after 3 rounds, 1 fevered, 2 more relaxed, I laid out my plan. I expected Tom and Jerry to object, but they didn't. "Jack, you've always been rough, but I can't imagine our daughter in better hands." Tom said, "I know you'll treat her right and make her happy. She's loved you since the day you moved in, a year after moving to Vegas." Brenda made friends with a cosmetology student who taught her how to highlight her features. She changed her hairstyle and became quite attractive. We married after her freshman year. I told her she could date someone her age, but she didn't speak to me for a week. "You silly, stupid aholy," she said when she started talking again. "I've only had eyes for one man." I watched as the wrong woman threw. "You're away now, and I know I'll never be able to let you go." I do still keep in touch with people back home. Tom and Jerry keep us updated. Cheryl married a guy from Thai, had a kid, and moved to California. Robin returned to Stonemore after I left her in Wyoming. She married a rancher who kicked her out a year later. The kid behind the counter handed me my pizzas. If I get them home quickly, Brenda might jump my bones before her study group arrives. I'll retire to my den and watch the Rockies on my MLB season pass. One risky woman to another, my life is as good as a morning crap.